Good evening, everybody. Hope you're doing well tonight. I've got a new T-shirt. Actually, I've probably got I don't know, two or three more T-shirts that have just come in for me to wear to you. This one, I know it's backwards, so I'll read it to you. It says, "Never laugh at your wife's choices. You are one of them." All right, you are one of them, and so I hope you get an enjoyment out of that thought right there. And you'll never guess who got that for me. But no, Jen got it for me. I want to talk to you today, more of a testimony, really. Jen had last Friday, so just a little under a week ago, made a post about her dad with a picture with her dad. And not everybody knows this, but Jen's dad was black, and we did 23andMe a couple of years ago, and her ethnicity is 20% Nigerian, and so she's my Nigerian princess, as somebody put it. I like that. But anyhow, she was a military kid. Both her parents are in the military, and unfortunately, because of various life things that sometimes happen, Jen never saw her father after she was 11 years old. It was the last time she ever saw him alive. And earlier on in our marriage, we prayed that the Lord would allow us to find him if we could, and we never could. And unfortunately, he passed away. But we do have some hope that he's in heaven. There is some testimony of some lost people that we came in contact with, and they testified to us that he started going to church, that he had gotten baptized, and had a Bible. We have that Bible here at our house, so we are very hopeful that her dad is in heaven, and it's always nice to have hope. But Jen, grew up, didn't have that relationship with her dad that most that people would want, and and that was very difficult. But she had posted that her dad was black, and four people defriended her within a few days, and of course that motivated me to make a post about that. And a lot of people have said some things, and I thought it'd just be nice to kind of talk about our life together, how we got to this place. And I know every now and then people appreciate some of the personal side of these devotions, and so. When I met Jen, we met at Plymouth State College up in New Hampshire. Now it's Plymouth State University, and met around 2001, probably somewhere that year. I can't remember exactly what year. I think it was 2001. And Jen had definitely a much more progressive mindset than she does now. In fact, it's really interesting how we first met. I always loved this story. And she was, I was friends with her roommates, and one roommate was moving out, and Jen was supposed to be moving in. And I lived far away from campus, so I'd always stop at their apartment, which was much closer to campus. And I wasn't in church back then, and just a little bit different than I am today. Any of you that knew me back then can probably attest to that. But and so I just had a way of trying to push people's buttons. I guess I still do that now, just in a different way. But back then I would push people's buttons, and they would tell me how, Jen was really big into women's rights, how she marched in the World March of Women, and that, I really had to not mess with her because she won't put up with it. And, I kind of took that as almost like a challenge. So I showed up at their apartment one day, and Jen was the one who answered the door. I said, "Oh, you must be Jen. I heard you were moving in." And I said, "I'm D-Jax." That was the name I went by in college. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I heard you come by. Come on in." And I sat down, and I started right away. I said, "So, I hear that you're big into women's rights." And she said, "Yeah, that's right." I said, "That's great." Now, I got to I'm not condoning what I'm about to say. I'm just accurately recording what happened, okay? I said, "That's great. I'm big into women's rights too." She said, "Really?" I said, "Oh yeah. I think every woman has the right to cook me dinner and do my laundry and clean my dishes." And and she looked at me and said, "And you have the right to get out of my apartment." I'm like, "What?" She's like, get out, you jerk. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, get out of my apartment. I'm like, why am I getting out of your apartment? I just was joking, messing around with you. She's like, well, I don't think it's funny. And I go, well, it is funny. Like, you got to lighten up a little bit. She's like, well, I'm not. There's 4 names on this lease and you ain't one of them. Get out of my apartment. And we got in an argument. And she threw me out of her apartment, and I had to buy her an apology gift to be allowed back into the apartment. And that is how we met. And of course, God worked things out. But God really did begin to work on us. We were dating. I had already gotten saved, and I was not in church and in a long way off. I got saved 2 weeks before I went to college, and just was not in a good place spiritually. And Jen was unsaved at that time, and so. God began to work on us. He used my mom. My mom was a testimony to Jen. We read the Left Behind series. That worked on us. A few other things were working on us. And I just got in my heart that I was going to go to church, and began to search for churches. Jen came with me. Went to a bunch of different churches, didn't know where to go. And at that point, I had graduated college, had a job. I had bought a condo. Jen just graduated from college a year later, and that's when God was really working on us. And we, I don't want to use the word by chance, but by divine providence, visited Victory Baptist Church in Londonderry. Pastor Fuller was the pastor there at that time, and I visited, and I heard preaching, Bible preaching, for the first time in my life. And I went by myself that day and came home to my apartment, and I knelt down on my knees in my living room, and I just said, Lord, I'm sorry for the way I've been living, and I promise you from this day forward I will do what the Bible says, but I don't know what it says, so just as I learn it, I'll do it. And then I told Jen, you got to go to this church, and she's like, okay, well, why don't we meet with the pastor? And so I called him. I said, hey, can we meet? And we met the next day, and brought Jen over to the church, and Pastor Fuller gave her the gospel, and she got saved right there on a Tuesday, and we got engaged that Friday, and we got married 3 months later, and the Lord's been good to us. And but God was challenging us, and we had good jobs, and we were starting in our careers, and the Lord was blessing in that area, but the Lord had different plans for us. And I was doing well in the environmental field. She had a good job as a store manager, and at CVS, then shifted over to Fidelity. And of course, Jen's got a lot of different abilities, and she'll do good at whatever she puts her mind to. But God had a different plan for us, and that was Bible college to prepare for the ministry. And that was tough. We quit our jobs. We sold our home and went to North Carolina. And I didn't have work there, didn't have a place to live. We really gave everything up, and down there it was really tough go. I mean, I couldn't find work for the life of me. I was working for basically minimum wage with a college degree, and was qualified to do jobs that were very well paying down there, but I couldn't commit the time because of school. And we started having kids. We had 2 kids while we were down there, and it was tough. All our friends from college were advancing, getting promotions, buying homes, taking vacations, and here we were struggling to get by. I mean, we went from making $75,000 one year down to 17 the next year, and it was very, very tough. And but the Lord took care of us. He got us through that. And my first year there, my dad, my stepfather, and grandfather, they all passed away in 10 months. And what was really cool about this was that I believe, look, God calls a man to preach. I believe that, but I firmly believe that there is a call upon a preacher's wife to be in the ministry. Because it's not just something you support your husband. If that's all I'm just supporting him and what he's doing, you ain't going to make it, all right? You're not going to make it, not long term, because it is a demand upon both of you, and there has to be a commitment of both of you to the ministry, which is challenging and can be difficult. And God, for as much as I learned, the theology, Jen's just as smart because she helped me study for everything. She knows it. And man, it was tough. She was home alone a lot. She had kids, and man, our heart goes out to every stay-at-home mom that's got more than one kid sitting at home. She knows what that's like, and I know the challenges that she went through, and I've never forgot that, nor ever will. I have learned, and my wife has been very good to correct me on this. I will never ask a lady if she works, because whether she works out of the home or in the home, she works. And I think everybody who's been homeschooling their kids right now understands that there's a lot of challenges by staying home. But anyhow, God not only challenged us, He began to develop us. After my junior year, I know the Lord wanted me to come back up to the Massachusetts area, and we needed to do deputation. Deputation, for those who aren't familiar with it, you travel around to churches of like faith and raise monthly support to go do the work that God has challenged you. And so I did deputation through my senior year. That's very atypical, but being in North Carolina, there were a lot of churches of like faith that I could travel to within 2 hours while doing my studies, and I was a very good student, so I could do both, and was able to do that. And we were very busy. I was in 160 different churches in 14 months, and to be honest, the first month I only had a couple of meetings. So really, in 13 months, I was probably in about 155 churches, and we were just go, 12, 13, 14 different churches a month, and driving all over the place. And I actually had the director of the mission board call me up and be like, man, you can't take your family on that. That's too much for them. That's too much for anybody. But and Jen had some health problems during that time, and so that was challenging. I had to do some of my meetings alone, but the Lord blessed and allowed us to come up here. And not only He developed us, helped us to grow and to mature, and we look back at some things now that we got that were challenges to us, that were upsetting to us, and we look at them now, we're like, man, that's nothing. And it's so good to look and see how God's matured us, and now He placed us here at Lifeline. Originally, we were going to start a church in Revere, and I remember Jen and I traveled over to Revere, and we drove around the city and just parked over by Revere Beach, and I looked at Jen, and she began to cry. And I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, I don't know how to say this. I don't feel right about it. And this is everything we've been planning on for the last year plus, is to come here. And now that we're here, she's like, I don't feel right about it. And I don't know why. I don't want to feel this way, but I do. And I'm like, okay. And then it wasn't a day or two later that Lifeline Baptist Church, that was already an existing church, had an interim pastor, just a handful of people. Anyhow, I had some cancellations of meetings and was looking for a place, and they said, yeah, you can come and preach. And I came and preached and presented the ministry to go start a church in Revere. And a couple of the ladies in the church that are still there to this day approached Pastor Fuller, who is now the interim at that church, kind of neat how the Lord worked that all out, and said, would he pray about coming here? Would you ask him if he'd pray about coming here? And God prayed about it, and I'm not saying I'm not being disrespectful, okay? The building that the Lifeline was in at that time was in disrepair. And it was of the 160 different churches I was in, was either the worst or the second worst church building that I was in. And I'm like, God, really? Here? Are you sure? And I'm like, Lord, and I'm telling you, I was like Gideon, because I was like, Lord, all right, listen, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. But I need something. I got two things that I want done, and I'll do it. And the first is, they had these gold pews that were just, they looked like from 1970 something. And I'm not being disrespectful. So all you people that were there, God love you. I'm not upset, but they weren't for me. I'm like, God, they're horrible. Get rid of them. And the next time I talked to Pastor Fuller, he said, I don't know if this matters to you or not, but we're getting rid of the gold pews, and we're getting chairs. Whether you come or not, that's going to be happening. But I just wanted to let you know that's happening. I'm like, are you kidding me? All right. And I said, all right, Lord, I got one more. I want the parking lot paved. I mean, there was weeds as tall as me growing up out of the thing. It looked like you had to go four-wheeling to get to the church. And they shared a parking lot with a bowling alley. And this is a big parking lot. This is not cheap. I know the church had nothing. I said, God, you got to pay that parking lot. And the next time I showed up to the church to preach again, the parking lot was paved. I about lost my mind. And from that moment, when that showed up and I saw that parking lot was paved, I said, this is where I'm going. And God's made it clear. And, but, it was Jen and her sensitivity to the Spirit that led me to begin to question, what God wanted me to really do, because we've always been on the same page in everything that we did, and she's been supportive of 100% everything that we've done. And this was the first time that it's like there was a disconnect, and that just made me stop, because wait, am I doing the right thing? Maybe I'm off here a little bit. And that's going to come into play because, see, Jen is gifted with the spiritual gift of discernment. Now, I didn't really understand that for the first 5 years that I pastored. And that's what was happening there in Revere, was the gift of discernment was being operated in her and through her, but we didn't understand it. And it took me about 5-6 years from that point to begin to understand that gift and its value to Lifeline Baptist Church. I don't have it like she does, all right? My gifts are speaking. Speaking and the Bible, like you want to talk scripture, you need a message, man, that is me. I can talk all day, and that's my gifts. Other stuff, I'm kind of oblivious. And, that's not my gifts. That's why God brings other people that are gifted to do other things that really are not my strong suits. And nobody does everything. No one can do everything. And everybody's important. And Jen, has that gift of discernment. And for, she would be saying, Chris, like, hey, this person over here, I don't know. I just don't have a good feeling about them. Like, man, you're being judgmental. Lighten up a little bit. And I kind of just dismissed her as being a jerk. And over the first 5-6 years that we were at Lifeline Baptist Church, every person that she told me, you need to watch out for them. And I disregarded her advice. And everyone came back to be a problem. Everyone came back to give me a headache and a problem. And after 5 years of that, I was like, Jen, I think there's something here. And so now, and again, understand, it's not like if someone comes and Jen's like, hey, watch that person. It's not like they can't join the church or anything like that, but it's just, we're going to be careful. And I listen, and that's why. Why is that important? Because the Bible teaches that Satan is going to bring the tares, okay, the tares, T-A-R-E-S, all right, are, they look like wheat, but they're empty. And what that's a picture of is unsaved people that Satan will sow into the congregation, that will look like a Christian, act like a Christian, but inside they're empty. And they're put there by Satan to cause problems. And so she was picking up on whatever, and I was ignoring it, and it caused problems. Now I listen, and I'm so thankful for that. And really, we are a team. I'm the pastor, but I would not be the pastor I am today without her insights on Lifeline Baptist Church, and I'm so thankful that. And I can tell you that God's also maturing us, and we're growing in the Lord. She's had a lot of back issues, spondylolisthesis, and that's been tough. Way too young to have surgery, but there's not much other option, so we just kind of take it day by day. So, that's all part of the maturing process. And of course, we have the church challenges, and with everything with the virus and trying to run church in a safe manner. And man, she is my number one sounding board. I have a lot of ideas that bounce through my head, and I bounce them off of her. And man, what a help, what a blessing. I'm so thankful That I don't have a wife that's just like, whatever you think, honey, you're just the smartest guy in the whole world. Whatever you say, I'm just here to please you. Man, that just makes me want to puke on myself sometimes. No disrespect to anybody, but I'm so thankful that my wife can be like, Chris, that is a horrible idea. You know, the Bible says, and we don't use this language per se, but the Bible says that a wife is what's called a helpmeet. And what that means is a helper. I've never understood men that don't want help, who think they know everything. And I don't want to be that way because I don't know everything. And God gave me my wife as a helper to help in my life. And I'd be foolish to not take that help. And there's probably no other person that can come to me with the authority that she does and say, you're not right. I remember one time in Bible college, I'll tell this story and then I'm going to finish up tonight, but one time in Bible college, she looked at me and she said, something's wrong with you. Your spirit's off. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's wrong with you, but you need to figure it out. I'm going shopping and you better have this figured out by the time I get back. And she walked out. And man, I got to praying, and I figured, and God, man, just showed himself in an amazing way, and he helped me to understand something about myself. You see, I've always worked hard. I've had a job since I was 12 years old, and I've been out on my own since I was 18, and I've always worked hard, and I've always provided for everything that my family needed, and my mentality my freshman year of Bible college was, I'm going to provide for my family. I'm going to provide for my family. And what was happening was I worked 50 hours a week, went to school another 20 hours a week, never missed a church service, but I never made enough money. And every month, every single month, God did miracles to provide for our family financially. And I remember I was getting mad about it. You said, wait a minute, you're getting mad about God providing miracles? Yeah, I was getting mad about God providing miracles because I wanted to provide for myself. I wanted to provide for my family. And after about 9 months of this, it affected my spirit. And what God showed me in that time of prayer was, Chris, you need to stop worrying about yourself and do my job, do my work that I have for you, and I'll take care of you. I mean, that moment changed my mentality moving forward for the rest of my life. And now you'll always hear me talk about, hey, you need to be others focused and others centered and let God take care of you. Where'd that come from? It came back from that day, my freshman year of Bible college, when my wife picked up that my spirit was wrong and said, you need to fix this. You need to get a hold of God and fix this. And she left, and I did what she said. I got a hold of God, and he showed me what was wrong with my spirit, and I left. Now, man, if preachers, if your wife just is so scared to say anything because you're just tyrannical and think you know everything, you are missing out. In fact, you're probably hurting your church because God gave you somebody to help you, and you're not listening to them because you've just told them to be quiet. And that's foolishness. And of course, I hope nobody like this is listening, but if you are, I'm not against you, man. It's just change your ways. Listen. Encourage your wife. Get her thoughts. She's a smart person. God gave her to you for a reason. And so I'm just so excited that, I've been able to have such a wonderful life thus far with my wife. We got 5 kids. They're awesome. And I'm looking forward to many more years. And, I'm just glad to be able to share my heart about my wife tonight. And, I hope it's an encouragement. And let me say this. Let me add this about marriage in general. I hope you enjoy your marriage. And if you don't, you can. There's a way. But it comes with God in the center of it. And some people's marriages aren't what God intended it to be because, quite frankly, God's nowhere to be found. And friend, if that's you, I'd love to help you. You just reach out privately sometime. I'd be more than honored to talk with you. I don't have everything figured out, but I'm here to help. Lord bless you. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Have a great evening. Bye now.